Hello and welcome to what I hope will be several in a series that I like to refer to as HOI4 Did You Know? And today I'm going to be discussing three different topics. The first one is German ideological paths. I'm also going to talk about some history, and we'll talk about post World War I influence on the history of Germany and what ideology it ended up with in 1936. And finally, we're going to talk about saving the game and using Ironman mode, but still having progressive saves in the game. So without further ado, let's take a peek at the global map in HOI4, but a little bit differently. This is referred to as the ideological view of the globe in 1936. This is from the game itself. All the blue countries marked in blue, are democratic countries, and each differentiation of color is a differentiation of ideology. The gray countries are what they refer to as non aligned. I think of it as a monarchist ideology. The brown, fascist. You'll note in the center of the screen at the top, that's Germany up there. It is fascist to begin the game. And the red countries are communist. There are only four supported ideologies in the game without modding. And I don't believe modding that I'm aware of has introduced any additional ideologies. But HOI 4, uh, vanilla and with official DLCs, only has four different ideologies. So, with that in mind, when you play your first game of HOI 4, you probably played as Germany unless you intentionally uh, clicked beyond the default choices that are presented to you for starting your first game, you end up starting as Germany. And in particular, 1936 Germany is the fascist version of Germany. And throughout your playthrough, your goal is to win, and you may or may not win your first time through. Uh, but you're going to try to take the lessons you've learned and apply them, and you're going to optimize your gameplay. And as you begin to play multiple games one after the other, finding success or finding improvements in your game, eventually you're going to realize that in 1936, there are some other ideologies you can choose as Germany. One is to play the non aligned path, the monarchist path, and you can end up playing as the Kaiser ruling Germany, or you can play the democratic path. And both of those introduce options in the game that are commonly chased by players as well. When chasing the monarchist path, the non aligned path, you can end up putting a female Kaiser, a Kaiserin, in charge, and she has the ability to form the Holy Roman Empire. And if you choose a democratic path, you have the option to form the European Union. The reason I mention these is when you finally succeed as Fascist Germany in winning World War II, which is feasible, can be done, you may realize that you're a little frustrated with the max core population of Germany peaking at about somewhere between 80 and 82 million people. Well, if you choose the Holy Roman Empire, I've had it about 150 million people. And the European Union has about 200 million core population. Now, those who have played the game quite a few times and are watching this video, I thank you for watching. But you probably also realize, well, if you can defeat China or the British Raj slash India, they have some heavily, densely populated areas that contribute significantly as non-core population, and so do the Dutch East Indies. They're heavily populated as well, or densely populated as well. Yes, but when you're talking about building a military, the amount of people that are available for recruitment from core population is significantly higher than what you can recruit from non-core population. Germany does have some limitations on what it can core. So the max area that you can core as Germany would be the European Union. The second highest number of states that you can core as Germany would be the Holy Roman Empire, and finally the de facto capability of coring territory as Germany is when you play as the fascist. But it doesn't matter which of these you choose. All of them provide sufficient population that you could, if you chose to, conquer the world. Now, how did Germany become fascist? Well, let's talk about World War One. At the end of World War One, or let's back up even further. World War One ended, all hostilities officially ended in June. That's when the um, treaties were signed, June of 1919. However, 6 months prior to that, on the 28th of November, 1918, the Kaiser of Germany, through his admiralty, ordered his navy to engage the British Navy. And some may argue that the German Navy was superior in build quality and the capabilities of their ships, but they were significantly outnumbered by the British Navy. So a portion of the German Navy, or the sailors in the German Navy, refused that order on the 28th. It was about 1,000 or a little more than 1,000 of their sailors refused the order. And that refusal started the beginning of the end of the Kaiser's rule. It spread like wildfire throughout the military that they could refuse orders, and by the 9th of December 1918, the Kaiser had realized he had lost control of his military and he fled the country. He went to the Netherlands. And when he left for the Netherlands, 2 days later, the remaining military leaders of the German military reached out to the Allies and declared an armistice. And an armistice was signed, and it took about 48 hours for that to be settled. So, German cessation of hostilities is officially on the 11th of December 1918. Well, 6 months later, that's when all cessation of hostilities were ended and the peace treaties had been signed, and Austro-Hungary had been cut apart, separated into multiple countries. Germany had portions of its European holdings taken, but in particular, Germany had to give up all of its global holdings, exclusive of Europe. Germany did have a trading post, city, port, whatever you want to call it, in China. They also had territories in uh, Austro-Pacific, and they also had territories in Africa. All of those were taken over by the winners of World War One, and there was also a severe economic penalty, financial penalty placed upon the Germans at the end of World War One. Prior to World War One, Germany was a global player uh, as far as a strong country economically globally. They produced approximately 80% of the chemical production globally. They were a huge industrial manufacturer of chemicals. That was their strength, and they were becoming stronger in other areas. The winners of the war recognized that they didn't want Germany to restore its power, so they punished the people of Germany post World War One. Yet the Kaiser got to flee to the Netherlands and face little to no punishment. So, as Germany was trying to claw its way out of its financial and economical disaster post the treaty ending World War One, the United States took pity on them and started, well, one might not say pity. They looked to leverage that opportunity and provided bank loans to Germany. Well, those who know a little bit about the early 1930s for America, that's when the stock market collapsed. And all of the bank loans that were working previously with Germany dried up and disappeared as the stock market collapsed in the United States, and the United States entered the Great Depression. And that's where the United States begins the game, but Germany begins the game with uh, a leader that saw the opportunity to make promises and raise the spirits of the German people and exploit them and become their leader. He's the leader of Germany as you head into the beginning of the game in 1936. He promised economic prosperity, which started to be delivered. Germany was recovering economically under his leadership. He obviously, knowing our history, went off the rails and is currently recognized as the one of, if not the worst person to lead a country ever globally. Um, his actions he took while leading Germany in World War II were despicable, and no one can argue differently. But prior to World War II, prior to militaristic activities, he did bring back pride and hope and prosperity to the German people. So that's how Germany became fascist. Repercussions post a very, very imbalanced, not saying it was right or not saying it was wrong, but a very imbalanced penalty to Germany post World War One. So, if you choose to play different ideologies as Germany, democratic and non-aligned ideologies, and I should say this is not exclusive to Germany, these ideologies have limitations based on world tension. One of the limitations is, are they able to guarantee the independence of another state? The Democrats require at least 25% world tension to do this. And if you look at the non-aligned countries, they have 40% world tension. Every one of these decisions is the same between non-aligned or democratic. The percentage of world tension is the difference. So if you need to, feel free to pause this. Um, but one point I want to make, and I want you to remember, is guarantee independence 25%. That's the restriction for democratic countries. If the world tension does not equal or exceed 25%, then you can't guarantee a country's independence from another country attacking them and going to war. If you do guarantee their independence, you can join the war once the aggressor has declared war. So again, I just wanted you to be aware of that. So on to the next screenshot. This is a screenshot which you can get in Hearts of Iron 4 by, excuse me, by hitting the F10 key. And this is called the faction view. And if you look at the screen, gray represents no faction. Pink represents a faction. In this case, you can see the name printed all over it wherever you say pink, and that's the Allies. Uh, Dark gray, or one might argue black, is the Axis, and it includes a single country, Germany. And red represents the Comintern, or the USSR and its initial allies. So when we say allies, you might note, if you have any recollection of history, that France was part of the Allies. Well, France joined the Allies in 1938. They were not initially part of the Allies in 1936. Who led the Allies in 1936? The United Kingdom. Who were members of the Allies in 1936? All of the imperial holdings and satellite states of the United Kingdom. And if you note, this is a map of the globe. There was a saying back from a long time ago, pre-World War One, that the sun never set on the British Empire. This is why they could say that. As the sun, or I shouldn't say circled the earth, because that's not what happens. As the earth rotated for the sun, or in orbiting, while orbiting the sun, there was never a time when the sun wasn't shining on a portion of the British imperial holdings. Sun never set on the British Empire. That's where that comes from, and this is why it came from that. Now, at the end of World War One, I said things were difficult for Germany. They ended up choosing a leader that promised initially hope, prosperity, reindustrialization, rebuilding of the great German country. However, there was a problem. And in order to pull that off, the problem is the UK, in particular the Allies, held all the prime real estate globally to ensure that they had all of the resources, critical resources, for industrialization. Because industrialization was a path that the major countries across the globe had been chasing for 50 years prior and 50 years after. We want to industrialize. The more we can industrialize, the stronger our country will be. Well, both the Allies, the United Kingdom in particular, and France, controlled so much territory globally that if you weren't working with those countries or you were not self sufficient, you were left bending a knee to either France or the UK for trade in order to get the resources you needed to industrialize. And Germany happened to be on that side of trade dependent side. They were not self sufficient. So the Allies, the United Kingdom, self sufficient for resources. France, self sufficient for resources. However, there were two other countries that were also self sufficient for resources, and that was the USA and the USSR. Now, did they have every resource they need? No. Both were lacking rubber. Both were uh, needing to trade to get rubber. The game represents itself with six critical resources, and they're listed on the right-hand side. So if you needed oil, rubber, aluminum, steel, tungsten, or chromium, you could lean on, or I shouldn't say lean on is the inappropriate description. You could make requests of the United Kingdom or of France. Actually, France didn't have oil, so we'll leave that aside for a moment. But you could request of those global powers to get the other resources. If you look at the left side of the screen, the United States had the largest surplus of oil production of any country globally. One might argue how it's represented in the game itself that Texas, not the United States, Texas had so much surplus oil that it exceeded that of any other country globally. Texas itself. So the USA had plenty of oil for trade. Oil was a critical resource for industrialization. So the United States was in a position of strength for trade, and they could get the rubber that they were missing or anything else that they felt like they were running short on. Both the USSR and the USA had plenty of steel. The USSR had more tungsten and chromium than the USA readily available, but no matter which country, USA or USSR, they had the ability with minimal effort to get any resource they needed to complete or continue their industrialization process. Germany, on the other hand, was not in that position. The game represents Germany with certain resource deficiencies. And in the upper left-hand screen here, you're going to see Germany had minimal oil, a fair amount of aluminum, non-existent rubber, a minimal amount of tungsten, plenty of steel, and a minimal amount of chromium. So four of those six resources were critically low to Germany. Germany needs those resources in order to industrialize. And this is true in the game as well. So I mentioned earlier, at the end of World War I, the leader of Germany fled to the Netherlands. Well, in my strategy for playing Germany as fascist Germany, that's a that's a wonderful thing for me because as the leader of Germany, I'm seeking retribution. And I'm seeking retribution on the Netherlands. And I'd love to see an in game event where, similar to Trotsky being assassinated in Russia, I'd love to see the Kaiser assassinated by the Germans. But aside from the historical reasoning for Germany attacking the Netherlands, the Netherlands controls two critical resources that Germany is short on: oil and rubber. Now, that takes care of two of the resources. Let's take care of the next two. That can be handled with a trade agreement with Sweden. That will provide tungsten and chromium. If I go after solving my resource problems, it can be done quite rapidly in the game. I can take Curacao and portions of the Dutch East Indies for oil. I can take Suriname and or portions of the Dutch East Indies for also aluminum, which I'm not short on, but more is better. And I can also do the same thing to get rubber. Dutch East Indies provides rubber. That is half of my critical resource problem. And the second half again is Sweden providing tungsten and chromium. The national focus tree of Fascist Germany does provide for chasing or creating a trade agreement with Sweden. The other I have to do with justifying a war goal. Both of those I execute as early as possible in the game. And as we change timelines here briefly, you now see that it was October 6th in my playthrough. And in October 6th, you see the Netherlands are still there. So did I really solve my problem? Well, yes, I did. I declared war on the Dutch East Indies. And because the Dutch East Indies are a satellite nation to the Netherlands, my goal was simply to defeat the Netherlands, which I did. And after you defeat a country in war, there is the conference, the post-war conference, where you can dictate terms of their surrender. As part of the terms of the defeat of the Netherlands or the Dutch, I took Curacao, I took Suriname, both in the Caribbean and northern South America, and I took portions of the Dutch East Indies. And now, if you look at the resource availability to Germany, 100 extracted fuel, 75 available. 211 available aluminum. That went up as well. 243 available rubber. That has gone up. So by seeking the historical retribution on the Kaiser, as I'm phrasing it, Germany has solved half of its critical resource problems. Shortly after that, this is the 6th of October. Now we're going to jump to the 28th of December. On the 28th of December, Germany has solved its other problem. It has completed the national focus, established trade with Sweden. And that solves the tungsten and the chromium problem. So in my playthrough, before the first year has completed, Germany has solved its critical resource problem for industrialization and militarization. I like that. So we're jumping to a new point in time. So between the 28th of December, 1936, and the 4th of January, 1939. So this is a little more than 2 years later. Germany has annexed Austria, and Germany has also defeated Poland. Germany has not started World War II. And the reason I mention that is if you look at world tension is at 46%. Well, it's only at 46% now because I took all of the Polish territory and all of the Polish Navy. But prior to my starting that war with Poland, world tension was at 24 or 23%. It was below 25% prior to me declaring war on Poland. Why do I mention that? Well, if you can keep world tension down below 25%, the Allies they cannot guarantee independence. So because the Allies were not guaranteeing the independence of Germany, when I declared war, world tension spikes when you declare war. Well, it was way above 25% when I declared war, and I raised it even more at the end of the war by taking their territory. So that's why it's at 46%. But before that, I got a war goal on Poland with sub 25% world tension, which allowed me to defeat Poland without triggering World War II. Now, some of you may have seen this version of a map view in HOI4 previously. Some of you may not. This map view is the resistance view. It can be achieved by hitting the F6 key on the keyboard. What you see out here is a portion of German territory that is all gray without a number in it. And then you see portions of German territory but it's referred to as occupied territory. It's not core territory to Germany. It is occupied Germany and by Germany and controlled by Germany. But that's really territory that Poland has claims to. Poland has cores to this. Germany currently occupies it. The war is over. The Polish people are resisting my occupation, and that resistance varies from 1 to 6% in its current state on the screen, but it is increasing. How do I know it's increasing? Well, that's the red triangle. Red triangle means that resistance is increasing. As a country's occupied territory, as its resistance increases, you have to dedicate more and more troops to occupy it. I'm not going to get into how you manage resistance and how you increase the opposite of resistance is compliance, how you increase compliance. The F6 and the F7 key will show you one versus the other. Um, but this video is not about managing resistance or compliance. Not at all. Just wanted to point out the fact that Germany in January of 1939, in my playthrough, is much larger, and we haven't triggered World War II yet. And my definition of World War II at this point is the defeat of the Allies. Um, One of the things I mentioned earlier is that France joins the Allies in 1938. I don't recall if it's October. I believe it is. It might even be September of 38, but they're already part of the Allies. So if I were actually playing a game right now, and instead of just showing you a screenshot of the game, I could zoom out, I could hit the F10 key, and you'll see that France would be that pinkish color of the United Kingdom. But I digress. Let's get back to the focus of the discussion here. I have portions of what were formerly German territories, and they're highlighted with the marks up here, the tan outlines, and that yellow outline. The reason I say they're highlighted up there is, do you note that those don't have numbers inside of them? That was or is Polish claimed territory, but because Poland refused the demand for Danzig, that territory became a core of Germany as well. So if Poland controlled that land, all of that territory would be core to Poland. Germany currently controls that section of land, and it is core to Germany. So Germany's core territory, the only gray colored sections out here, has grown from its original size at the beginning of the game in 1936. It's gotten bigger. What did Germany get from coring additional territory? Well, when Austria was annexed, 11 divisions joined the German military. A large portion of civilian and military factories also were integrated into the German economy. What stands out for Poland being defeated is two states that were formerly exclusively Polish core territory are now German core territories, and that's Gdynia and Danzig. Now, between those two states, 11 dockyards also were added to the German industrialization machine. So that's the state of the game, January 4th, 1939. Now, I've jumped ahead. And I'm showing you the same perspective I showed near the beginning of the game when we were talking about the faction view. The date has changed. It's the 20th of July, 1940. And on the 28th of July in 1940, what don't you see on the map that you saw previously? You don't see any of that ally information. And that's because in my playthrough, on the 28th of July, 1940, Germany completed its defeat of the Allies. Germany occupies, controls most of Europe, except Southern Europe, portions of Great Britain, portions of Northern South America, all of what was formerly known as Canada, all of what was formerly known as South Africa. I should say portions because Namibia was part of South Africa prior to this. So Namibia, its own country, South Africa remains, and Germany, that's now German territory. Most of India, not Pakistan, not Bangladesh, all of British Malaya, and portions of Indonesia that was acquired back when Germany defeated the Netherlands, all of Australia, all of New Zealand, and New Caledonia, which is an island that exists between Papua New Guinea and New Zealand. Now, one might say, let's transfer that saying of the sun never sets on the British Empire to now the sun never sets on the German Empire. So this again, the 28th of July, 1940, no more hostilities in Europe. All wars have been settled in Europe, and Germany is the victor. Germany is now in the strongest position of any country in the globe. How do I know that? How can I show you that? Well, we're going to change perspectives here. I'm going to switch views, and I'm going to show you a view of Hearts of Iron 4, and I'm going to go single player, and I'm going to choose to load a game, and in particular, I'm going to load this game right here, Ironman Germany, or Ironman German Reich 4. That is the game that I started, uh, or that is the name of the file that represents the entire playthrough that I played. And I'm going to go ahead and not just load it, but I'm going to start it. Notice it is an Iron Man game. This is Iron Man mode. So I'm going to go ahead and click start. Game's going to start up here. It's got to finish loading. It's almost there. All right, so let me zoom back a little. There. And actually, let's back up all the way. I'm going to hit F10. This is the view I showed you, the static shot I showed you previously in my presentation. This is the active shot. The game is still paused. It's still 3 a.m. on the 20th of 1940. That was the screenshot I had. This is Germany right now. Let's take a peek at its resources. Germany still has a lot of oil. Germany still has a lot of available aluminum. Germany still has loads of rubber. Germany still has lots of tungsten. Way more than it had just from Sweden. Lots of steel. Lots of chromium. Matter of fact, way more than it had prior to simply trading with Sweden. So Germany has backfilled all of its resource needs. It has plenty of resources. Down here, current need. Germany is currently using 38 oil. Germany is currently using 275 aluminum, and I still have 120 left. Germany is currently using 145 rubber, plenty left. Germany's using 20 tungsten, 235 steel, and 10 chromium. There are plenty of resources for Germany to continue fabricating military equipment. Now let's look at production. Germany has 176 military factories. Well, let's click up here. Germany has 116 civilian factories, 134 total, and some were coming from trade. Germany has an insane amount of industrial capacity. Germany, as I was stating previously, has the strongest military, equipment wise and technologically wise, not manpower wise right now, but they still have 110 million manpower available to them and growing. So Germany is a dominant player, the dominant, not a dominant, the dominant decision maker in the globe with this playthrough. Now, let's look at something that you may not have seen previously. Look at the world tension. What's that magic number right there? 0. Germany has defeated the Allies and world tension is at 0. That might seem impossible. Um, because Germany took all this territory, shouldn't it be high? Well, yeah, it could be, but it isn't. And let's look at the details here. When you click on the globe, you get to see how world tension is being influenced from the beginning of the game up until now. So let's scroll down. Italy generated 1% world tension when Ethiopia capitulated, and that was on the 30th of June 1936. Germany didn't really do much, if you remember, until uh, until excuse me until October of 36. Well, in October of 36, or September, I should say, they declared war on the Netherlands, and that generated 0.8% of world tension. Um, Germany took over Austria, annexation, 6.7% of world tension. Japan did some stuff, and this is Japanese puppets did some stuff, and then Germany, they demanded Danzig, and that created world tension. Uh, they declared war on Poland. That created world tension. They defeated Poland, so they declared war on the 29th of November. About 34, 35 days later, they had defeated Poland. So that was a terrible month of war, wasn't it now? Poland capitulates. Italy generates world tension. German right. They demanded Sudetenland. That created world tension. Germany has created loads and loads of world tension. As you as you ratchet this up, how many times do you see the German flag related to world tension? You see it a lot. Here's 1940, the 22nd of 1940. They declared war on the Netherlands. Netherlands capitulated. So that took 3 days from the 22nd to the 25th for Netherlands to fall. They declared war on Belgium. Well, we uh, created offensive lines and front lines against Belgium, and then we executed those attacks by declaring war on Belgium in March. Belgium joins the Allies immediately, and not long after that, Belgium and well, here's Germany, declaring war on Luxembourg. Here's Belgium following the 22nd of March, the 12th. So it took 10 days for Belgium to fall. Luxembourg had already fallen, or yeah, well, I'm not sure where they are. We're eventually going to spot them. But the point is that I'm making here is Germany generated an insane amount of world tension up until the peace treaty, the conference post-war, and the Allies were defeated. And how do you generate negative 80 world tension? Well, you generate negative 80 world tension by liberating countries. Most of Africa was either an imperial holding of France or an imperial holding of England. Now France is free. Most of the Caribbean was in a very similar situation. Um, this right here used to be part of the United Kingdom. It's now its independent country. Other items out here, other countries out here used to be part of the French or British imperial holdings. They're no longer under the yoke of the British Empire. They are free countries. At a peace conference, if you choose to liberate countries, it reduces world tension. Pakistan used to be part of British Raj. It's free now. Bangladesh, also part of the British Raj. It is free now. So, also Southeast Asia or French Indochina, uh, Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos were all part of the French imperial holdings. No more. So, how did I get world tension so low? I got world tension so low because I liberated Africa. However, was I foolish enough to liberate countries that were providing critical resources? Absolutely not. I'm going to hit the F8 key as I zoom in onto South Africa. And as I zoom in, what do you see out here? A critical resource, chromium. Let's look at one of the countries I first took portions of first, the Dutch East Indies. There's rubber, oil, aluminum, rubber and oil, and British Malaysia. 4 items on the primary um, uh, uh, producing location of British Malaysia. This area was also part of British Malaysia, and so there's oil and rubber there as well. I took Australia simply because I had loads of points and I was still generating negative world tension. So I took this and this still didn't put me over 0 world tension. Same thing with New Zealand, but I did take New Caledonia when France conceded because I want the chromium. I took portions of South America. Why did I take portions of South America? This was British, this was Dutch, this was French. Well, I like them all contiguous. If I ever wanted to move across South America, I've got a starting point right here, but I get aluminum. Curacao, an island in the Caribbean just north of Venezuela. What does it have for me? It's got oil. Why did I take Canada? There's nothing. This is no slight against the Canadian people, but as Canada is represented in the game, there are no critical resources found in Canada in the 30s to the 40s. However, what is critical about Canada is if I choose to move against the United States, I have a land border shared with them. So I can just stack my armies right here and sweep south. And as I mentioned much earlier in the game about oil, that's how much oil Texas produces. One state in the United States, 640. More oil than I think any other country has or can produce combined. So yeah, if I feel like I want to be the dominant player for oil, I might push through the United States simply to take Texas. So the game is over, and I should say over's not the right word, but I've positioned Germany that there are no real threats in the globe other than from Germany. Germany dictates the pace of the game without fear of reprisal at this point. Germany is the dominant player. So, one of the things I said we would talk about is we would talk about um, saving games while you're in iron mode. So you could go back and load them. Well, I'm going to hit the escape key and bring up the load menu. Notice I'm playing iron mode, so I don't have a save game choice here. I'm clicking on it, I get nothing. If I choose load, I get something. One of the things I stated previously is this is the game that represents the entire playthrough that I've been taking screenshots of. Well, this represents an earlier save of that game. Germany, playing Germany, Holland defeated. And if you could actually read this without it being abbreviated, well, here, let me help you read it. I'm going to switch screens here, and now you should see a Windows Explorer window. And in Windows Explorer, note that you see German Reich 3, Iron Man German Reich 3, Iron Man German Reich 4. You then see Holland defeated. Oh, I wanted to see that date. That is 10/4 of 36. I saved this game and saved it as that name. Whenever you are playing Iron Man mode, okay, this is the game I currently have loaded. This is the one that represents the 3rd of July, 1928. Notice, not the 3rd of July, 3 a.m., the 28th of July, 1940. That's that save. Because that is the save I'm currently playing, or that is the file that I'm playing off of, I'm going to reload that file. And when I reload that file, what do you mean? You're loading the file you're already running? When you load that file, or when you load any saved game, Hearts of Iron 4 does one thing before it loads that other game, is it takes your current game and it saves it. So if I choose to reload the game that I'm currently playing, it's going to first save the game, give it a new date timestamp. And when I say date timestamp, not an in-game game, excuse me, date timestamp. It's going to give it a new file date timestamp. So I'm going to choose to load this game. Let me show you where I'm at. Switch back. I'm choosing to load Ironman German Reich 4. That's the same game I'm currently playing. So I'm going to choose load. And when I choose load here, boom, there it goes. I'm going to switch you back. And as we look at Windows Explorer, this file got a new time, the 17th of December, 2024 at 2:13 in the afternoon. That's the game it's currently running, and that's the game it also updated. That's the file that represents the game that it updated. That's the one that's in use. So if I wanted to create a backup of the game right now, all I want to do is right click on that file in Windows Explorer and choose copy. And then I right click in a free space location and I choose paste. We're going to get a new file called Ironman German Reich 4 copy. These two files are identical. I'm going to switch us back to the game view. And if I choose to load a game, notice there's a new file that I could load. I could load the copy. All right. Well, I don't want to load that. I've already got this one running and they're the same file. I'm going to switch us back again to Windows Explorer view. So we're in Windows Explorer. And I'm going to take that replica or that archive or that copy of my current game and I'm going to choose to rename it. I'm choosing rename on the menu and I can put any name I want in there. I'm going to say, I'm going to call it sample archive and hit enter. I'm going to switch our view again. I'm going to switch back to the HOI4 view and I'm going to choose to load a game. And look, I've got a game called Sample Archive. I didn't create this game by playing Hearts of Iron 4. I created a replica of this game by copying this file. This is all Iron Man. Can you save games progressively, multiple instances of the same game progressively while playing Iron Man mode? You absolutely can. Are you able to do that through the Hearts of Iron 4 interface? No, you cannot. Choosing save game doesn't do anything for you. But what's your alternative? Your alternative is to open up Windows Explorer. And in Windows Explorer, if you go to your Documents, Paradox Interactive, Hearts of Iron 4, Save Games folder, that's where your saved games are found. And Windows Explorer lets you do things with those files. Anything you really want to. You could start copying them, you could rename them, you can do anything you want with those files that you normally could do with any file that you find on a system, um, on your file system. Um, so back to um, back to the back to the game itself. Let's look at some of the save games that I have for this playthrough. One of them is right here, Germany setup, which was January 1st, 1936. This was one of my saves. So I'm going to choose to load that save. And you can see, well, it's going to load at noon on the 1st of January, 1936. Okay. Yeah, shouldn't say noon. It's actually midnight or 12:01, I think is what it really is. But anyway, it's the first hour of the 1st of January, 1936. And one of the things I called it is I called it setup. Why did I call it setup? Well, because every time I start a new game, it becomes frustrating to redefine things that I commonly do. I define my research. That's one of the things I do when I start a game. So now I have an archive file that's already done this. It's already defined all of this. It's already defined my construction cues. It's already defined my military factory assignments. It's already done many of the things that I would normally do when preparing to play as Germany. So if I forget to do something in my planned execution while playing Germany, if I forget to do something, I have a backup that I could revert to that doesn't require me to redefine generals, split up my military divisions. I don't have to do all that. Other things I've already done as well. I've already consolidated my navies for how I like to run my navies. I've also given my Air Force orders. They're all moving to Berlin. Let me highlight more. They're all flying into Berlin. I'm going to merge my air wings and I'm going to start training them. Those are some of the first tasks I do when playing Germany. So I start a new game. I let some de facto file name begin the save game process. But when I reach a point that I want to save my progress, what do? I know the game that I'm playing by name. I choose to load that same game. And which one did I just load? I just loaded the setup game right here. That's the one I just loaded. So if I reload it again, after I've started playing, it updates the file with my current state. I then go to Windows Explorer, I create a copy of that file, and then I continue playing because I'm still playing off the original file name. And for the playthrough that I've been showing you, this was the original file name I started with, Ironman German Reich 4. And I've spawned many progressive copies of the state of the game throughout my playthrough. So things I saved. I saved after defeating Holland. That was October 4th, 1936. I also saved it right after creating a trade relationship with Sweden. So that was 9 p.m. 28th of December 1936. You also had me or saw that I showed you a January 4th, 1939 screenshot. Well, that was Poland being defeated. That was another progressional save that I made. And you also saw the final one I saved, which was the 28th of July, 1940. Allies defeated. These are all the files, the progressive saves that I've made during my playthrough. So, if after defeating Poland, I feel like I made some bad decisions, I could restart from the Poland defeat time frame. There are advantages to doing this. It gives you the flexibility of not having to recreate every decision you made up to a specific point in time, but still get your Iron mode or Iron Man mode benefits. So if you were chasing a specific achievement, you can still chase it. You just make decisions differently. So that's what I wanted to show you. That's what I wanted to demonstrate as part of um, this video. So what I want to do now is let's take us to the next phase of our discussion, which is now you know. So from everything I've gone over thus far, that in particular about this playthrough, you know that defeating the Allies by July of 1940 is doable. And not only is it doable, but it's doable with zero RNG. Um, I can make bad decisions and I can fix my bad decisions, but there's nothing through the random number generator, that's what RNG is for, that's going to stop you, make it impossible for you to defeat the Allies. RNG doesn't play a role in defeating the Allies. It also doesn't require that you finish with high world tension, or in my case, any world tension. Germany is considered a valued, respected country globally. Why? Because it's not creating world tension. It is the reverse. Germany's not the conqueror in this playthrough. Germany is the liberator. Germany liberated colonial holdings from France and England. That's what Germany did in this playthrough. And finally, you know that there are no remaining threats to world domination. Germany is the most dominant country on the globe at this point. They don't control more territory potentially than anyone. I believe the USSR still controls more territory, but there is no country more prepared to dominate the globe than Germany in July of 1940. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I welcome your comments and your feedback. I'm also debating whether I should do the playthrough unedited, which I can do from beginning to end. It would be a long video, but if you're interested, let me know, and I can redo all the clicks, all the decisions, and I'll verbalize why I'm making certain decisions as I play through. But it does take a couple hours to complete this. Um, my machine isn't the fastest. But if you're interested, let me know in the comments. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I wish you a wonderful day. Thank you.